Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Mokono Man at YouTube with another model video. Today, unboxing, building, reviewing, then finishing the Gerbera Tetra. No grade 1144 scale model kit by Bandai. An original 1980s boxing, slightly water damaged and faded. The exact same version was reboxed and released around the 2000s and late 2010s. Retailing around $20-25. Containing 5 runners, 1 polycap, all colour separated, no masking required. Injection moulded in polystyrene. The peg and butt joints are tooled towards plastic cement assembly. There is some point of articulated snap fitting and tension pivot joints that unfortunately break easily. Single page, easy to follow glossy instructions. The other side, a really cool technical data sheet poster artwork that doubles as a painting guide reference material. We'll be building this with a standard assortment of hobby tools, nippers, hobby knife, sandpaper, solvent plastic cement, filling putty, a mini Q-tip applicator. Using the 2-cut method to remove the part from the runner and trim down the nub, further cutting it, sanding it to prevent stress marks or damage, the sanding and removal of other faults and flaws, plastic cementing both sides and sandwiching it together in the appearance of a noticeable seam line filled with putty, allowed 24 hours to dry, and sanding, which this has plenty of. Reminiscent of older high grades, which this is a predecessor of, we start with the arms sandwiching multiple smaller iconic black polycaps in between components. These were standardized for a little while after the original early 80s kits and was mixed between multiple scales from 1/100 across to SDs. By the early 90s we'll get the iconic semicircle grey polycaps that we still currently see some representation of in even modern kits. Instead of alternating knuckled parts going on pivot joints, we have separate parts that we can glue and fill seam lines on that interconnect from the polycap to pegs. The system works very well and makes it fairly easy to build, modify, fill seams and paint later on, as there's points for attachment with alligator clips. Moving down to legs, there's a few points for thrusters, a peg for the feet. The rest of the components is very similar to the upper limbs. The time required to finish and polish is substantially extended due to the central seam line. That needs correcting on every single component. Snap fitting all of these together, we could see that there's a whole range of articulations and poses that can be achieved, even pivoting some parts. Lots of options, gimmicks and playability for its time, which was very revolutionary. This kit is an absolute gem and holy grail in my opinion, and is rated very highly at the time and still stands pretty strong in the modern era. Besides minor setbacks, almost getting close to the proportions of superior garage kits at the time. Moving on to the torso, it's very bulky and there's a few more gimmicks and interesting parts. This is the only point where there is a masking point for color separation. Due to the zeonic bulk nature of this iconic suit, there's multiple parts that attach to the back and upper shoulder that gives it a very rounded and bulky silhouette. I had concerns that the shoulders and thrusters would be very fragile and brittle, and balancing issues with the very large cylindrical backpack, but it still balances very well when freestanding. A bunch of bell thrusters all over the place that click into place and maneuver around, and fuel tanks that polycap join to the bottom of the backpack. A few sliding joints that are a little tricky to figure out, but nothing too hard with anyone containing a little bit of experience. Before the seam line and polishing work finished, we did the final assembly and test fit before painting. Out of the box glue snap fit looks quite stunning as is. I would have been happy just having this back in the day. 100% top 10 no grade kit. Very highly recommended, very cool, and so much potential once you start looking at modification and painting. Rarity wise, it's moderately common and can still be found around online and secondhand or clearance outlets. For proportion, sculpt and detail wise, I do much prefer this over the very recent high grade. It's a controversial take, more so for my personal taste. As per normal form, the painting half of the video, all the parts are broken down and sorted in the corresponding colours. Then pegs and other parts attached to alligator clips that's mounted on skewers or metal wire, which is stored on corrugated cardboard. I thinned down some automotive primer with lacquer thinner and dusted all the parts at low PSI with a double action cheap airbrush on a portable compressor. The goal is for a neutral colour to build paint upon. This orange red can bleed through all sorts of colours. Secondly, make any flaws like open seams and stuff that I've missed through the putty stage, which there has been some encounters, including primer cracking, maybe due to oil residue or the plastic aging. And lastly, promoting the best adhesion possible for the paint to sit on top without wearing or scratching, chipping off. The first layer had fairly undesirable results, which led me to correct quite a few mistakes and resand several points, then re-primed and followed up with a coat of white paint. In the way of the scheme, this mobile suit is just a monocolor with black or metallic highlights in certain technical detailed areas, and wanted to be far more artistic in finish. Tribute to the original art, I will be using a red magenta, but it's a pearlescent color that shifts in color from light source and movement of the subject, built upon layers of white shaded with grey and darker grey. The intensity of the pearl will differ from what part of the shading that has been picked up, making it fairly inconsistent but in a light gradient manner. The pearl was built in multiple layers, then a heavy coat of clear gloss for a deep sheen look. I wish it was a bit more intense. In between these layers, some details were hand painted and everything receiving a sludge wash to pick up all the panels and details, which was scribed previously to be deeper. The other parts received my signature metallic black shaded to gunmetal treatments, and had a lot of fun, yet maybe spent a little too much time going out blending multiple colours for the desired results. Especially the bell thrusters resembling more modern aircraft, changing colours from a burnt iron copper to a blue. Carbon build-up on the rifle, discoloration around the vents. Flat back gems was added to the scope and mono eye of the head. Sludge wash for definition, and finally everything receiving a few coats of flash clear to give it an even deeper gloss. With all these layers, a few days was set aside to allow for full chemical curing and hardening before touching to prevent any prints or damage, then carefully assembled without any breakage or paint damage. I'm extremely pleased how this came out, and more so absolutely in love with this particular kit and cannot recommend it enough. This could have gone a different way by being darker, which is very normal to all my other Zeonic vintage builds, or different base or shading, even a semi-candy. Regardless, very satisfied how this came out. No real flaws or issues. This model was gifted to me by one of my best friends who was moving house at the time. His partner has just given birth to a baby boy, which I give my heartfelt congratulations for and thank you for the kit. This was a prized possession which he intended to build long ago and unfortunately gave up on the idea. This concludes this build and video. I had so much fun with this, even down to the editing and recording of this. Pretty pleased how the video came out. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay tuned for further content and check out the description section down below for references, links and other social media platforms where I post other content like pictures and work in progresses. Catch you all later. See ya.